Wow.
We've talked a lot about Jaden Higgins with Nate Shieldhouse. With him coming in as a newbie to the team, but a veteran in college football,
Hmm.
what was it about him that allowed him to take on a leadership role so early on?
Yeah, I just think in maturity, I think such a young football team that we had, you were looking for maturity. And I think you go back and over the course of time, we've been able to find some of those guys. Xavier brought the same thing to our football team when he came in, probably at a really critical time, a maturity at the receiver position, a guy that had played college football prior to. I think that really helped, just even the recruiting process with Jaden, who he was even more impressive than what he did on the football field, and he certainly had a really successful career at Eastern Kentucky. But I think the other things that we were looking for were, character, leadership, somebody that could bring a sense of maturity, work ethic, and honestly, since the day he's been here, he's been uberly impressive with those traits and habits, and it's fun to watch him really start to evolve into the player I think we all believe he's got the ability to become. And but from a character standpoint, from how he's gone about his process, he's been nothing short of exceptional from day one.
And I asked Coach Shieldhouse this as well, but how important has that his character, not even what he does on the field, but helping Rocco, helping the other receivers adjust in a young offense?
Well, I think anytime you have as much youth as we have, probably started the season with, anybody that understands the highs and lows of a college football season, the time, effort, and energy you have to put in January, February, March, April, May, June, and July to actually be successful when it matters. I just think that's huge, and that's probably what was so impressive about him, from what he did in the evenings, from the time, the effort, and energy you kept leaving at night, and he was the one guy in here, and then you saw him start to bring some of those young guys with him. I think that was really impressive. And so, for us, we've been fortunate that we've had a lot of those players in our program that understand that, and he brought that with him, and I think it was huge for this group to evolve to what it's become. And it's more than just showing up on Saturday, it's everything you put in the off season to be able to do those things. So he's done a great job of that.
10 years ago, almost to the date, Iowa State went to Baylor, lost 71-7, the worst loss in Iowa State history at that point in time. 10 years later, on Saturday, as of now, Iowa State's favored. And you've had 7+ of those 10 years. What's changed? What's changed that has made you guys trend upward
Yeah,
since then?
I think Randy, you've been a part of this whole journey, so I think you can probably give it as much perspective as maybe I can. But I just think there's been a, global change of, we can be successful here. How to be successful here is not easy, but the time, the effort, the commitment of everybody that's involved in the program, believing that you can have success here at Iowa State. And I think over the course of 7 years, 8 years, I think we're in a process that we know if we're willing to do the right things and align ourselves the right way, then success can occur within our football program. And that's, we've had good times and not so good times, but I feel like every time we've gone out, we've believed we've had an opportunity to win the football game. And I think that's the biggest probably thing that's changed over the course of 7 to 8 years is there's belief that you can and you have the ability to win football games.
Talking to Caleb Bacon, and he said maybe the biggest thing he did on his bye week was go home and cheer on his brother in a high school playoff game. A, is that maybe the least surprising thing you'd expect out of him given who he is? And B, just from football perspective, how much is his motor and his want to, quote unquote, help fuel that pass rush in particular, but
Yeah.
the overall defense?
Yeah, I think Caleb and there's probably about a handful, 5 or 6 other guys who I just think their trajectory to get on the field here to play and then to watch the result that they're gaining because of what they've been willing to do to put themselves in a position to play. I think that's probably been the defining kind of course of this year's football team. It's like nothing's been easy. You had to start from the ground up, and you got to build yourself. And Caleb's a guy that certainly would be right at the center of that. And I know we talked about this a couple weeks ago, but from winter workouts 2 years ago to you know, standing up and say, man, I'm going to make you guys know who I am, to last year, man, demanding to get on special teams because of his effort, to, you know, really this fall camp. And it was, you know, I can still remember, it's like the 5th or 6th practice of fall camp, and he's rushing the passer, and it's like, man, this guy is really impressive. And I think as a coaching staff, that's what's been really fun to watch with Caleb. And, you know, he does it with great humility. He does it with great character. He's the same guy every day. That's hard to do. It's really hard to do, and I think we all know that. But I think when you're relentless, and you start where he started, and you ingrain in those habits that it takes to be successful, I think the world is great. The world is starting to see that. But he's earned it, and he's certainly proven it every step of the way.
Coach, sticking with Caleb Bacon, when you make the decision to bring him into your program as a walk-on, I know that that's not always the easiest decision of bringing kids in, but when you're evaluating walk-on talents, how do you determine if a kid's a fit for your program and what made him the right kind of addition?
Yeah, you know, I think our place is so unique. Like, you know, to me, we have 130 players, and they all count. And so, you know, whether it's a scholarship or a walk-on or a preferred walk-on or whatever that entry into the program is, today's world of college football, you better know the young men that are coming into your program, and can they play? And to me, you know, we're not in a situation where we can afford, you know, player 128, 129, and 130 is just coming on and being a part of the team. You know, everybody here has to have a purpose, and everybody here has to have, you know, a pathway onto the field, because I still think you want to be on the team because you want to play. And, you know, I think that's something that myself, Coach Hoosier, our staff really put a lot of time and effort into. And I don't care if you're a walk-on or a scholar. It doesn't matter to me. I don't care if you're a freshman or senior. The best player is going to play. And I think that's one of the huge positives that if you've looked over the course of the last 8 years, that's been a truism. And that's not just, you know, coach speak. That's fact. And, you know, I think that's helped us, you know, get young men like a Caleb Bacon, and, you know, man, John Klosterman's doing some of that stuff. I mean, I can go down the list of our roster right now of guys that are in that boat. And, you know, to me, it's finding the right 130 to start every football season off. And, you know, your depth and getting guys competition at practice, the ability to go out to practice and have great practices on Tuesday and Wednesday, it all matters. And so we have to be really good at that here if we're going to be successful. So that's really kind of, you know, my answer to that. A great question.
In the past few years, you've used the bye week as kind of a way to get, like, the guys that aren't getting a whole lot of reps some time. Can you kind of go through what bye week practices looked like last week, and then maybe some of those younger guys that maybe seized that opportunity and made a good impression?
Well, I feel like you've seen every young guy we got, you know. So I don't know if this year we could go into it looking like that. You know, I think really our thought process was we didn't want to miss rhythm of the season. You know, I think 70% of Power 5 football teams lose coming out of the bye. And so I think it's a huge challenge to our team, to be quite honest with you. And, you know, I think part of that challenge is you're in such a routine and a rhythm that you can get off rhythm. And I didn't want that to happen to this team. You know, I felt like we were able to really keep that rhythm. All those young guys are playing, and they got to get better. And if we wasted a week to not get better as a football team, then I don't think, you know, we were going to be very successful. And obviously we got a great enough challenge as it is in terms of who we play. And I think Baylor's a mirror image of us in a lot of ways, young team that's starting to find their identity and playing really good football right now. So, you know, I just, you know, from our end of it, it was a completely different bye week just because of who we are and what we are. And like I said, we went to work and kind of tried to keep the same rhythm that we've had the last couple of weeks.
With the bye week, I imagine you had more time for film and maybe even time to watch games on Saturday. Did you get a sense of where the league is and how you guys fit into it as you hit this home stretch?
Yeah, I just think college football is crazy. You know, I mean, I don't like to watch college football because it makes me nervous, and it makes me, like, dread getting back into it a little bit. You know, I mean, there's so much chaos going on. But, you know, and I say that just because it's hard for me to even know who we are. I think so much of my thought process right now is everything else will take care of itself, but who are we? You know, and I think that's been my challenge even to our staff, you know, as we got off the field on Saturday and kind of went back to work a little bit Sunday, Monday, is let's figure out what are we doing well? Where are our gaps? Because we still have many of them. How do we keep trying to fill those gaps in so we can be our best down the stretch? And, you know, obviously, you know, you're playing really good opponents here at the tail end of it. And, you know, I think what you still learn about college football, the team that wants it the most on Saturday usually wins the football game and makes the least amount of mistakes. And I think, geez, I don't even know if it's college football. I think it's the NFL too. And so, you know, I just feel like those were the things that we really went to work on from my standpoint.
What's been the biggest change, development, evolution, however you want to look at it, for Rocco from a guy who, by virtue of not playing in last year, you guys were, you know, signaling he didn't think he could do a better job of helping you win football
Yeah.
games in a year where you didn't win a lot, for him to now be in a huge part in having a 3-1 record
Yeah.
in the league?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for Rocco is his ability to, and I think you saw this a little bit at the end of the season when he went in the TCU game. You know, his ability to take a step back and almost watch college. You know, it's no different than you see in the NFL sometimes. Those guys where they get to watch for a little bit and then they get their opportunity to go. And I think Rocco's maturity to be able to diligently prepare, especially by the midpoint of the season where he really became the true two. I thought his preparation and process was really impressive. And as anybody would, you're evaluating, man, what's the guy in front of me doing really well? What's he not doing well? If I get my opportunity, what should those things look like? And I think that's something we've tried to do as a program, whether it's going good or bad, is, man, those twos or threes, like, man, what are we doing well? What aren't we doing well? If you're the guy or your opportunity comes, how are you going to be ready to seize that opportunity? And you know, I just remember, you know, that TCU game. I know there wasn't a lot of great things a year ago in that game, but the one thing that was a little bit of a spark was Rocco when he went into the game, and it wasn't perfect. And yet, you know, I was pretty impressed with his mannerisms. I was impressed with kind of the energy that he brought to our football team when he went in. And so I do think Rocco, and that's a credit to him, because there's a lot of times, and man, we got young guys right now that are waiting their turn and sitting or not getting the bulk load of the snaps. It is really hard to do that. And I think all of our egos say, man, I should be the guy into the game, and don't have the humility to sit and watch and say, man, if I'm not in the game, can I still learn, grow, and get better? And I think what you've seen from him is he didn't waste last year. It wasn't just, man, I'm going to sit there and, you know, complain because I'm not the guy. I think it was, I'm going to learn, I'm going to grow, and if I get my opportunity, and when I get my opportunity, I'm going to make the most of it. And that's really the credit to Rocco right now.
In that same vein, I mean, you mentioned there was a time where he was a 3 behind the walk.
He was.
More patience and, I guess, perseverance you need to keep that.
Yeah, and again, that's part of a freshman's journey sometimes, is earning the way up the depth chart. And, you know, I think even for Rocco, I mean, it is. I mean, I would say that's the hardest part with college athletics, especially in football. And, you know, there's, you know, I think sometimes the basketball world and some of those worlds are different, but the football world, you know, at least here, you start at the bottom and you got to earn your right to go back up. And, you know, I think that's tough, because you go through recruiting. Everybody tells you you're great. You think you're really good. You're the best player on your high school team. You probably have the ball in your hand, or you're the guy, and then you got to come to this level, and everybody's pretty good, and you got to start back over. And I think that is ultimately the great challenge, and that's why you go back to recruiting. It's more so the who, what's the mentality. You know, you're never perfect in that, but can you find the guys that are willing to work through it and become the best? And, you know, I think Rocco certainly has great maturity, and that maturity is certainly shown forward. And will need to continue to show forward. You know, I think he would tell you there's still a lot of work for him to do to continue to evolve to be what he's capable of being. But I think at least what the feedback and what I've watched from him is there's a relentless pursuit to it. And I do think that started a year ago. And, you know, man, go from 3 to 2 to get on the field and play, man, then get into a competition a little bit in the spring. And then, man, all of a sudden your shot's there, and you either make the most of it or you don't. And he's certainly been willing to do that.
What kind of growth have you seen from the physicality of the tight end room, especially in run blocking, and how has that been able to impact the offense in explosive plays?
Well, I would say the beginning piece of it is physicality. You know, I think you saw Easton Dean go from 245 to 265. You know, I think you saw Steve O'Klotz, you know, start the season around, you know, 255. Gabe Burkle starts the season at 280. And so I think there's a little bit more confidence in those guys as the humans, as the football players. And then I think the evolution then of, you know, you got Tyler Moore, who's done a really good job and has been able to stay healthy and has battled injury all season. I think they did a great job in the off season preparing themselves to take a next step forward. And I think you look at last season, and it was an Achilles heel. You know, you go from being a team that could play with great tight end play and be able to do multiple things to a team that, you know, there were times last year we were so depleted that we didn't have any tight ends. And it's really tough for us to play the offense that we want to play or the style of football we want to play without those guys. So, you know, Coach Mouse does a great job in the development of those guys. But, man, I would just say who those guys have become, it's been really impressive. I mean, even you talk about what Ben Bramer's been able to do, you know, physically. I mean, it's not just a pass catcher. I think you watch his blocking and his ability to kind of grow, even in the, you know, 3.5, 4 months that he's been here. It's been super impressive. So really, really impressive room, growing, getting better, but really talented room that's really went to work.
Matt, you mentioned the similarities between these two teams and how their seasons have progressed. Where is Baylor a bigger challenge now than at the beginning of the season?
Well, I think they're beginning to have a great identity. You know, their quarterback has really played great football. If you look at especially the last 6 quarters, he's been exceptional. You know, he's got great escapability. He's made big play after big play. Great skill receiver room. You know, I think that room has been super impressive. And I just think, you know, you got to remember that group, much like us, lost a lot of guys, and just trying to work through who their identity is and what they are. They've got, you know, a tremendous coaching staff, you know, and a group that I think, again, they use their bye week really well. I think they kind of went back to work on who they wanted to become, how did they put their playmakers in position to make plays, and came out clicking on all cylinders. And then I think defensively, they're a football team that has a lot of veteranness. They've got that veteran D-line, linebacking core, guys that have played a lot of good football there and been successful. And so I just feel like as a football team in general, their identity is really starting to evolve and form. And again, you give a lot of credit. They got a great coaching staff. Their kids are tough. They play really hard for 4 quarters. And, you know, I think just finding out who their guys are and what they can do and then putting them in the best position to be successful. But I feel like they're clicking on all cylinders right now. They'll be a great challenge for us.
Coach, having won 3 of 4 heading into the bye week, how much momentum did that give you guys on the recruiting trail? Because I imagine you went out and did a lot of recruiting now.
Yeah, you know, I still think, you know, kids don't even know at half the time what your record is, you know, in my opinion. I feel like, to me, the recruiting journey is relationships and continuing to build. And that is one of the things I love about, you know, getting out of here and being able to go see young people in their environments. Those are things I do really enjoy, and being able to, man, how's a kid go to school? How's a kid train in the weight room? How's he go to practice? I got to go to a lot of practices last week, which is awesome. And, you know, I think those are all things that's rewarding for us to see, because it helps build that relationship and try to know and understand who the heck you're recruiting to come into your football program. Healthy. Go ahead. Yeah, Randy, we are. I think we're fairly healthy, you know, going into Cincinnati, and I think the bye week certainly served us well of guys that were dinged up. But I feel like, you know, we're really close to full strength as we come out of the bye week, which is good for us.
A few of the players mentioned after the Ohio game, looking in the mirror and deciding what team you wanted to be. Did you kind of feel that same way, and what kind of team did you see when, I guess, you looked in that metaphorical mirror?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever flinched about this team. I've been really bullish since, you know, May, June, July, and August, because I saw this group has been relentless in becoming who they had the ability to be. It's really talented, young team, but they're young. And, you know, part of growing up, you know, especially at Iowa State, you have to go through it. There's no, I wish you could snap your fingers and make it just happen, but that's not how it's ever going to be. You're going to have to go through the process it takes to be successful. And I think what we saw at Ohio is, number one, it's still shown to be a really good football team, one of the most senior-laden teams in the country. Played really good football against us. We didn't play our best football. And, you know, obviously when you lose a game, that's not the result that you want to have. And so, you know, you come off with 2 tough losses in a row, and I do think you have to look yourself in the mirror and you got to say, okay, where are we going with this thing? It becomes a mentality. Do you know, I think there's great growth opportunities for us, but, man, are you willing to truly stay the course and not worry about exactly what the result is, but maybe why we haven't gained the result that we want to get yet. And I think our kids have done a really great job of understanding that. Like I would say for the 7 games we played, we have gotten better every week. And yet the challenge is, can you keep doing it, right? Can you keep getting better? Some teams will, and the ones that will, they have really special seasons at the end of November and December, and then you get to, you get to look at the entirety of a season. You say, man, did you have success or not? And, so we're a portion of the way through it. We've got a lot of work to do and great challenges ahead of us, but our kids so far have stayed the course to be able to keep getting better.
Coach, obviously the bye week is huge to get, rest and guys who are hurt get healthy, but is there a sense with the way y'all were playing heading into the bye week of, man, I wish it wasn't coming this week, maybe coming later with the way y'all were playing? Is there a sense of
Yeah, I just think for us, it's how you use that bye week, and we tried not to stray too far off of our schedule. I think we were at a point where it was good to be able to maybe take a little bit of the workload of the week off of our kids' plate to physically continue to kind of move forward for the last stretch run. I do think it's always a great time to be able to really self-reflect. What are we doing well? What are we not? Fundamentally, get back to some of the things we need to get back to be able to be our best. And like you said, you don't like sitting idle on Saturday. I'd rather be in the mix than sitting having to watch it or being at a soccer game. You know what I mean? So, which I was Saturday. So that's kind of part of life. Nothing against soccer. We did win, which was great, which was more important. I did not. No. I wouldn't even know what to say. So attitude and effort, that's what we coach at the soccer games. So, all right, guys, thank you.